We're live on the visuals at the Dome, where the Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana is set to deliver his speech. Let's listen in.
No, Honorable Member. We will allow you to speak. So can I conduct the session? There's what? What is the emergency about? Where are the mics? Order. Can we please get a roving mic?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Yes.
There are no mics here where we are.
Exactly, I'm seeing
And we
that
can't
too.
start a sitting without having mics because we are here to be the voice of the voiceless. So when the voice of the voiceless is voiceless, who's going to speak for people? There are no mics here.
Thank you, Honorable Member, for pointing that one out. One may not know what is the challenge. We will check that with the communications team. Order. Honorable members, for now, since there are no mics that are connected, which unfortunately had not been brought to our attention, we will try and utilize the roving mic where necessary. I have just had a consultation with all the whips of parties following a consultation with the leader of the government business. In terms of Rule 48, subsection 2, we have decided to adjourn proceedings for a date to be determined by the programming committee. This is in accordance with Rule 10. Honorable members, before we started the session, we were informed by the leader of government business, as it is the process in terms of the communications between ourselves and the executive, that while today we've been gathered here to actually have the Minister of Finance presenting the budget to this august house, that there has not been agreement in terms of parties in the executive to actually find one another in proposals of the budget. And the executive therefore decided, as some of you already know, and as your whips have said in our discussion, some things that have already been on the media about where there are possible increases and where different parties, as well as members of the community's perspective on those proposed increases were saying. And Cabinet therefore decided not to come and do a presentation of the budget and allow themselves enough time to re-look at the budget and come back to this house in March at the time at which they will inform us. So, no, honorable members, I will point you, I have noted your hands. Well, in our consultations, which I must report to you, the different whips shared with us their perspectives on the matter. There were those who agreed and asked that we ask the executive to give us a definite time in March so that we are able to deal with the pressures of time for the legislature. Secondly, there were those who were saying they are not accepting the postponement. But obviously, we did indicate that while we note their refusal on the postponement of the sitting, it would not be of any use to postpone when there is no presentation that will be made. There were others who already declared their rejection on what they say it's an alleged increase of 2% on the taxes, so they said they wanted to state it upfront that they are not agreeing. So I'm just giving you a perspective of the consultations that we've had. But there was agreement that if there is no budget that is presented, there is no discussion that will be held, as there is no other item on the agenda. Honorable members, we have had 2 hands of members who would like to reflect, and I will give each party to make their reflections. It's something that is unprecedented, but I do think it is correct that when such situations happen, we need to collectively think on the best way forward. And I guess it was correct that we are informed, even though late, that this is the situation. I will now recognize Honorable Malema, followed by Honorable Manye. I don't see the hand at the back. You are recognized, Honorable Member.
Thank you very much, Speaker. We must all know that this is unprecedented, and this is not a practice that we want to set for this Parliament. It is going to be your legacy, Speaker, that during your tenure, Parliament could not debate and adopt budget. We are saying to you, you are denying this body an opportunity to be receiving a budget, debate it, accept it, or reject it. You are now subjecting the budget of South Africa to party politics when the budget is supposed to be above party politics. Let the budget be presented here and let Parliament decide that this is the decision that we are taking as Parliament, or whether to accept or not. You cannot come here and say confidently that the parties in the executive are not agreeing. What is that? We don't have parties in the executive. We've got the executive. The executive must come here and present the budget, and this Parliament must decide whether we adopt that budget or not. You are denying the people of South Africa to see what is happening in this government. There is no government. It has collapsed. It has no capacity to present a budget. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have noted your view. Honorable Malema.
Thank you, Speaker. Now, for us, this day is actually quite a shocker. We are really shocked. This is in the past 30 years, to have a day like this is a serious indication of the crisis that this country is facing. This country has got no leadership. This is what we are facing. We are saying, if we say we have democracy, let democracy come and exercise itself here. This is the theater of politics. Let the Minister of Finance come and say whatever he wanted to say. We don't want to hear rumors. We hear very disturbing rumors that the VAT would have been increased by 2%. In other words, we hear rumors that this ANC-led government wanted to impoverish our people.
Okay,
we have no sympathy with that. The minister must come here and say what he wanted to say, and then we'll deal with it here.
Thank you. Honorable Mulder. Yes, I've noted you, Honorable Member. Order, honorable members. Let's allow other parties to express their views. Honorable Mulder.
Honorable Speaker, this is not a time for cheap politicking. This is serious. It's the first time since the new democracy in 1984 that this has happened. But we also understand that the Government of National Unity is serious about South Africa and about the future. And because of that, we must understand that things could happen in terms of where more time is needed by the Minister of Finance to have these discussions and for the executive to discuss these things.
Order. Honorable members, your leaders of party spoke and they were given time to express their views. Whether others agreed or disagreed, they listened. And I would ask us to do the same.
Thank you,
Honorable Mulder.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. If we are serious and if we are responsible, we will understand the circumstances. And we know that some political parties will try to make cheap and score cheap political points. I think we need to be responsible. We need to think in terms of the economy and the message that it may send. And we from our side will support the decision and give ample time for the executive and the Government of National Unity to come to the right conclusion. And it's not true that Parliament will not have an opportunity to discuss this. When the time is right, we will all, as representatives of the people, discuss the budget in full. We support the decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Mkwangwa.
Speaker, thank you very much. Where was this discussion held? Why was the UDM not part of that discussion? As a result, we cannot support a decision that we know absolutely nothing about. Secondly, we should not treat a proposal from the executive in the nature of a budget as fait accompli. It is only final after Parliament has approved it. It is therefore logical, if the minister was going to table a proposal, that the proposal should have been tabled here for Parliament to consider, and if Parliament does not agree with that process, we can arrive at a different outcome altogether. Thank you.
Thank you. On the issue of your consultation, Honorable Member, I'm sure you will be clarified because all the whips were asked to come and have consultations here. Honorable Naimane.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker and Honorable Members. Today does mark a historic day. What I do believe is absolutely important is that what we do in this House is guided by legislation. And therefore the Money Bills and Related Matters Act does compel us as to a particular timeline as to when the budget is going to be tabled, what committees are meant to process it, and how that goes. I want to appeal to you as the Speaker. Firstly, we have raised continuously in this House through the Appropriations Committee about how truncated the time is for the processing of the budget. So any natural delay that emerges as a function of today does in fact mean that Parliament is placed under pressure in not being also being able to consult with the people, for this is where the people are represented. So may I ask that it must not be an arbitrary decision as to when this must be tabled. We must be given a firm date so that we can work the timetable consistent with law. Otherwise, the disagreement that took place today will end up in the court of law, and we as Parliament will be held accountable for that. So let me propose that we get a firm date. We also get the tabling, as the President has promised, of the medium-term plan that he announced, so that we have a framework within which to interpret the budget from. So, Speaker, let us stick to our own laws. Otherwise, we will be inconsistent with that, and the people of South Africa will hold us accountable for that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Ganga. Ghana.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I was part of the consultation that you called, and in that consultation, there was that understanding that given the disagreements at the cabinet level, and that they are not ready to table the budget now, that the postponement be given. So I'm just standing to say that I was part of that meeting, and we have agreed that the budget be postponed. Thank you very much.
Order. Honorable members, can we please respect one another? Your leaders of parties did express themselves and they were listened to. And I think it is important for all of us to be respectful of each other, even if we disagree. Honorable Swart.
Thank you, Speaker. On behalf of the ACDP, we did indicate our support when we had the discussion, but we did request that a specific timeline is given, because there can't be an agreement to extend this indefinitely, and we trust that you, Speaker, will engage with the leader of government business so that we know to what date this is postponed. We need calm heads, we need level-headedness at this time, given the fact that the executive has decided not to table a budget today, and it could have severe impact on the markets and on the currency, and therefore we need to send a message that we and those parties that are in agreement with the postponement, that this is in order for the Government of National Unity to obtain consensus on some contentious issues, which could also be linked to the VAT increase. So from our perspective, we would plead for members, for the broader public, to understand this is a first budget by this Government of National Unity. Let us enable it to reach consensus, and let us stabilize the markets and sentiments in the nation. That is the least that is required of us as responsible leaders in Parliament. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Beasley.
Speaker, it's quite clear that Parliament is becoming a laughing stock. The GNU is becoming a laughing stock. The GNU is anti-poor, the GNU is anti-growth.
Order, can we please listen to the speaker on the podium?
And it's an absolute disgrace. Our country is battling with economic growth. When the market sees what's happening with us, it's an absolute joke. And one of the reasons why they can't make a decision is because it's such a bloated cabinet. And the poorest of the poor are paying for a bloated cabinet. There are deputy ministers here that don't even know what they do. We don't know what they do. And we are paying for it, and it is unacceptable, and they should all hang their heads in shame. It is a disgrace.
Honorable Hadebe.
Thank you so much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker.
Order, honorable members. Order. Honorable Hadebe.
Honorable Speaker, I rise to confirm that I was part of the consultation that was urgently called, and as the IFP...
Order, honorable members, can we allow Honorable Hadebe? Order. I'm calling everybody on order. Order, Honorable Pambo. I have said to everyone, including the member you are pointing at, that let's listen. Can we? Honorable Hadebe, can you continue?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I just wanted to confirm that we did form part of the consultation as the IFP, and we agreed and supported the proposal that was put forward before the chief whips of political parties. We view this as a sign of leadership, that when you do need more time for fine-tuning on some of the aspects, you approach Parliament for postponement. In essence, the IFP support the proposal, Honorable Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Michalakis.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, contrary to what some of the opposition parties have said, what is happening here today is actually showing two factors that should create immense confidence in what is happening in this country. The first is that Parliament is not a laughing stock, but that Parliament is no longer a rubber stamp to bad policies that will cripple our economy. And the second message that should go out to the markets and to the people of South Africa, Madam Speaker, is that the GNU does not consist only of one political party. Madam Speaker, therefore, the DA supports this postponement, and we hope that the executive will use this opportunity and this time to consider all the proposals on the table, especially the DA ones, so that when we hear a budget that gets put before this House, that it will be a budget of growth that will put our economy on the path of recovery and that will create jobs for the people of South Africa that they so desperately need. Madam Speaker, if that is the result, then the DA is absolutely willing to wait for a short while to hear a pro-growth budget. And therefore, we will support this postponement, but with a clear message to the executive, and particularly to our partners in the GNU, that you are not alone in the GNU, that we have an equal say, and that we will continue to fight for every single person in this country, most particularly the poor. We support this postponement.
Thank you. Order. Order, honorable members. Al-Jama, Advocate Salim.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, and to all members. As Al-Jama, we are going to support the postponement, and I'm going to tell you why. Firstly, the first concern that we brought to fore is the fact that we knew that there were problems even before today. Why wasn't a postponement done sooner than us having to sit in this House? That's the first thing. The second thing is, if you go and look at the markets, dear members, it is already impacted by this budget speech, which is not happening. And also because of our politicking. Who is going to be impacted? The nation. So Al-Jama will support the postponement. Why? Because if it is the interest of our nation that they won't be impacted, that is why we will support the budget, the postponement. However, Madam Speaker, all of the chief whips unanimously noted we need a date for this postponement because it has a rippling effect on the rest of the budgets. So we cannot come here today and just say there's going to be postponement in March. The request was, give us a definite date of postponement. I thank you.
Thank you. The ANC.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Indeed, we convened the Chief Whips Forum to consult one another as per the request of the Speaker. The Chief Whips who were in the House at that particular time, they were consulted because they were in the House. I ran all over here looking for the Chief Whips. No one was left deliberately. I passed there. On the issue of postponement, we agree with the postponement, Honorable Speaker, to allow the executive to finalize those contentious issues that they are dealing with in the interest of all South Africans. We therefore requested that we need a date for the budget speech to be tabled. I thank you, Honorable Speaker. We are not here to grandstand as the ANC. Thank you very much.
Order, honorable members. I have allowed all parties that have raised their hands. Honorable Zumula. Honorable Nkwankwa, you have already been given an opportunity. The issues of the Chief Whips, I will ask that the Chief Whips can talk to each other outside. But for now, let me allow Honorable Zumula.
Thank you, Speaker. We need to ask you, Speaker, who decides? Because if you are going to allow the Chief Whips to decide for the entire Parliament, it is problematic. Secondly, you cannot allow a case of the incompetence of the executive, even at the incompetence of Parliament. The executive did not know yesterday that there's going to be a budget today and there's no agreement in the so-called GNU. Therefore, the executive, the Minister of Finance, must come here, present what he has, and let us, as the people, as the representatives of the people, decide for the people. This notion, Speaker, of saying we want to assure the markets and all of these things, it is problematic. This house does not belong to the markets. It belongs to the people. We are the representatives of the people. Massive Minister of Finance presenting what he has. And then the parties here can be seen whether they are in support or they are not in support. Do not deny the parties an opportunity of standing and clearly showing where they stand. And also an indefinite postponement is not going to be acceptable. Because if let us wait for an indefinite postponement, what does that mean? And what happens if after that indefinite postponement, they come back again and then let's postpone again? We're going to have more and more postponements. Makazi apa, sizele lonto apa.
UAT.
Yalewa Speaker. Rona re le UAT re motho ha tla tlo present mona. E qaqile hore ntwena ya tshwatleha jwale. Ntwela ya phitlheganya jwale. Se ba tsholo ba re bana le lona ba nna le safe. Ha tle mona tlo bua setjhaba se moemetse. Re ke be ra kgona ho sebedisa di resources tsa government for mahala ka tlela mona re na le baeti mona. Ha tle motho na re utlo re kgolo mo phiatlakanya le yena ha etsa tsa hae. Danke.
Thank you. PA.
Speaker.
Order, honorable members.
They are my friends.
Order.
Don't worry.
Honorable member, you can proceed.
Speaker, what I have seen the
Honorable members. Honorable members. Honorable members of the EFF at the back. Order. Honorable Pambo, can you please speak to the members at the back of the EFF? Honorable Mackenzie, can you proceed?
All right. Speaker, what I have seen the past 2 weeks, I want to tell the people of South Africa that I have seen humbleness, humility, and people that listen to each other. I want to congratulate the Minister of Finance. You came to present a budget which the DA, the PA, and the different parties didn't fully agree with. But the ANC were humble enough and say, let us hear you. What is it you don't like here? For 2 weeks we've been busy. We are seized with the last issue. A wise man changes his mind. We are united. This is not a one-party state. We are together, united, all of us that you see here. These ones, they will not know. They are a government in waiting. We are the government. The government is taking charge. Amen.
Order, honorable members. Order. Honorable members, good.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. First of all, the good parties support the postponement. But the truth is, all parties and the GNU agree to the postponement, not certain parties. Let us not play politics, because the people out there are waiting on us to lead this government of national unity. All the parties agreed, not only the DA or the PA, it is the IFP, good PAC. We all agreed. Please don't play politics with our people. Thank you.
Thank you, the PAC.
I confirm that we support the postponement, Speaker.
Thank you, honorable members. I have listened to all the parties. Honorable Nchingila, is there a new issue? Honorable Member, if it's again repeating on the issue of the postponement I've heard, I will make the ruling now.
I just want to establish, Madam Speaker, that will Parliament reimburse the guests that we've invited to attend the budget?
Well, thank you
Because
very
the
much,
cost
honorable
incurred.
members. Honorable members, Honorable Dlamini, is there a new issue other than what you have already expressed yourself on?
Thank you very much, Speaker. We want to call for a division so that we are clear. The members of Parliament here, they must by themselves express their decision on this question of postponement of tabling of the budget. So we want to call for division, we want to vote here because some of the ANC, they are agreeing with us that this thing of 2% is nonsense. And they're saying, let's vote. So please, Speaker, we're calling for division. Because the 2%, it's nonsense.
Honorable Zungula, is there another new issue?
It's another issue, Speaker.
Okay, what is the issue?
It is concerning how you are running the House. When there is jeers and noise from this side, you don't call them to order. But from this side, you are very quick to call us to order. So the order is on you, Speaker. Be fair on each and every member of Parliament. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I accept that I must listen to all members of the House. And having listened to all of you, and the questions that have been asked about who decides, we were consulted by the executive through the leader of government business. And having applied my mind as the Speaker, it was clear that there was no budget that would be tabled. It was for that reason that I consulted all the parties, and I understand Honorable Nkwankwa unfortunately did not make that meeting. Though two of the parties did express their concerns, but unanimously all parties agreed that we postponed. Honorable Malima, I said two parties, which is the EFF is one, MK is another. Yeah. No, ATM was not in that meeting. So can you please not raise those issues which were not part of the meeting? Honorable members, clearly I've listened to the views of all parties, and I think it is in the interest of all of us and the people of South Africa that we postpone and allow time to the Treasury to finalize whatever they need to finalize. You wanted certainty. Executive has given us the date of 12 March to come and present. As this Parliament, we are not going to compromise our timelines as to how we need to deal with that budget. So no time will be shortened for us to deal with these issues in terms of our timelines. So I want to thank honorable members and adjourn the House. Thank you.
But the reality is you've got a 10-party GNU, and it has to be accommodated. So like anything, there's trade-offs that have to be made. What we can do, and what we have been doing, is looking at how we can reduce the cost of government to make it lower. So for instance, I've refused to take new cars. I'm driving ministers' cars from 2 ministers ago that have got over 200,000 kilometers on the clock. I know it's not good enough for Mr. Trollop and Action SA, but nonetheless, I think it's a commitment that we're not going to waste money on new cars. We'll use what we've got and try and make do with that. So whilst the cabinet may be larger, we we have to look at innovative ways to be able to shrink that and make it smaller.
John, one of your members.
Should I go to you? So just to give you a view from outside of the GNU. So the ACDP was part of the meeting, and we really believe that this is in the best interests. Those opposition parties that are not in the GNU but are centrist supported the request for a postponement today. We really want consensus to be reached in the GNU. This is the first budget by the GNU, and we realize there are contentious issues, such as the 2% VAT, and so we fully supported that. But what the ACDP said is we must have specific timelines, and we insisted that we need to know until when this postponement takes place. We have a number of serious objections from the centrist groupings of the non-GNU parties, and therefore we would like to express those views. But at this stage we support, and we believe, and we called on mature leadership so that we can just stabilize the market, stabilize the currency, and not play petty politics, because it impacts all of us, and we trust in a good. This is good news. It's regrettable that it took place today, but it is good news for the future of our nation. Thank you.
Just bear with us, Nompo. I'm trying to get the mic in with the EFF, who are currently also speaking to the media.
Well, the postponement of budget today has rendered Parliament useless. It has got no authority, because budget, whether you agree on it or not, you must bring it here so that it can be debated and ultimately adopted. So there is no government, because if you don't adopt budget, it's clear the government has collapsed. Today we have witnessed the government of national unity, a coalition, grand coalition of DA and ANC, collapsing in front of South Africa, something that we said to all of you that it will not last. We will never agree to increase of 2% on VAT from 15% to 17%. And that's why they are scared to come here, because it will be rejected. It is on the budget proposal that was withdrawn that he wants to increase the VAT from 15 to 17%. And that is where the fundamental disagreements are. And we said, bring it here. Let the people of South Africa hear what is the actual disagreement. Then you know that indeed the EFF is reasonable by demanding that this budget must be rejected. Parliament's role is to accept or reject.
Yeah, I'm fine. Come. All right, thank you so much. We have a National Assembly Speaker, Thoko Didiza, who's going to give us an indication of
2025 at 2 p.m. here in the Dome.
In practical terms, the postponement, will it not have an effect in terms of allocations for the government departments?
No, it won't have a problem in terms of the allocation for government. It's still before the end of March, but also, as you know, we pass our budget in June. So there will still be time for the Appropriations Committee and Finance Committee to look at the bill as it is a money bill, and then the departments will then have their budget debates in terms of how they are going to spend the money that they are allocated, and at the end we will then adopt the budget.
Obviously, the postponement would mean that there might have been some wasteful expenditure here. Your take on that?
Well, the reality is we have to acknowledge that the executive informed Parliament at about 10 to 2 that they can't find one another, and therefore they're asking for a postponement. So it was an unforeseen and unavoidable situation in my view.
So let's go when it comes to the cost implications, what does that mean?
It is unprecedented, but you know that 2024 gave us a different configuration of government, which is indeed unprecedented. 10 parties in the executive will indeed share that there will be
Thanks very much. Well, the word unprecedented has been used for what we have experienced today. Some minutes after 2 o'clock, I did allude to the fact that something seemed fishy, that this was weird. Why were we not seeing the finance minister? Why were we not seeing the president? And indeed, it has come to pass that members of the GNU could not agree on a 2 percentage point increase in VAT. Seemingly, it was the DA and others who were very much against the lifting of this VAT increment of 2 percentage points. That is the issue that has broken the camel's back, so to speak, and we are here where a decision has been taken to postpone the delivery of the budget. But a new date has been given, that is the 12th of March 2025. But I think questions are going to be asked around why it was that this decision was not made sooner. Why was there not an appreciation of all the expenses that would come with everybody coming for this particular sitting? We'll come back to me in just a moment. Let's go to Bulelani, who is with the Speaker. All right, and so we're back. This is unprecedented, as I've said. A date of the 12th of March 2025 has been given for the delivery of the speech. In the meantime, we are hopeful that members of the GNU will have a meeting of minds in terms of what to do around the issue of VAT. But what has happened today has serious ramifications. We heard from the political parties. Everyone has a different view around it. With me in studio, I do have Ndombi Mbele Tomo. She is an independent economist. Ndombi, we have never seen anything like this before. In fact, budgets since 1994 have always been passed, let alone actually been delivered, right? So we're in a situation where the budget speech is not being delivered. We've got an alternative date. But did it really need to come to this, that there would be so much disagreement that it would only be decided on the 11th hour to cancel this? Because, of course, so many people have descended upon Cape Town for this, and they're saying, oh, no, don't worry, come 12th of March, we're going to do it again.
I think, Nompu, as you've mentioned, this is uncharted terrain, really, for South Africa, especially for the budget. We've seen sometimes where the EFF has tried to perhaps stop the SONA from proceeding, but that also has never been successful. But here today, under the new dispensation of the Government of National Unity, you're seeing this happen firsthand. And I do think that in as much as we are taken aback by this and all the considerations in terms of the expenses, this is government at play, Nompu. This is what coalition looks like. We have seen and been comparing ourselves with countries across the globe that have actually been experienced and have been in government of national unity for over, 2 decades or more. And so you're seeing this being a global phenomenon where really, where there's coalition, there's disagreement. And when there is absolutely no, consensus that is being met with those political parties, these are the results. And so it's extremely disheartening, but I do think that South Africa needs to start opening itself to these kinds of realities. This is the start of many, where we'll see if there's disagreements and the governance in terms of as we've seen, the chief whips not being able to meet, and the meeting of minds, as you put it. We're going to find ourselves in these situations far more frequently than we'd like to.
Yeah. How do you think will be perceived, though, in the short term? We did see that the rand depreciated because everybody that is concerned with the South African economy and its workings and its potential was watching this, and we know that market players will be pricing in what's happened today. It's been a non-event. Do you think the depreciation in the rand will just be a wobble, or much will depend on the outcomes going forward?
I think much will depend on the outcomes. I think that the market, of course, right now will depreciate because this is a shock, right, to the market. And so the market will react accordingly. And of course, there's negative ramifications. We already are able to see that. I do think that the proposing of the 12th of March as a date does give some form of credence again to the government of national unity, and the fact that it was done live in Parliament with every single, stakeholder able to see it come to a consensus is great, because what we're recognizing now is that because we did not see the consultations happening to agree on this budget, particularly on the VAT issue, which is what broke the camel's back, as you put it, is the reason why we're here. And so if these consultations were perhaps made a bit more public than just hearsay of what we saw in the news coming up over the weekend, we didn't really see it coming to be a big issue. And that's why a lot of the forecasting economists were under the assumption that we'll see perhaps sin tax coming in, or all of the excess duties and that kind of, in that tax space. Not any of us were in a position where we were confident that VAT would be pushed up by not even 1, but a 2% increase to 17%. And so because of the lack of that consultation, we are here. And so it's great to see it happening live in front of us. And it also gives some form of confidence, little as it may be, to the market.
Yeah. Do you think it's wrong that the government would decide to go ahead with a 2 percentage point increase without, like you say, leaking it out into the public domain for us to discuss, at a sort of public level, without really knowing what the decision is going to be? Because my recollection with the previous VAT increase was there was a lot of dialogue and a lot of discussion about, the possibility of increases, giving Labour and others, the possibility to speak. Okay, we're just going to halt there, pause there. We're going to cross to my colleague, Abra Barbier. Abra, over to you.
Nompu, thank you. I have with me the leader of Rise Mzansi, Songezo Zibi. There's so much to say. Everybody's got a lot to say. What is your opinion, or what's your feedback?
I mean, firstly, this is an unprecedented situation. We have never had a budget, the tabling of a budget withdrawn before. It's unprecedented. But I also want to say that it's really important that all of us as political leaders are honest with South Africans. There are 10 to 15 years of corruption, of waste, of mismanagement, of destruction of institutions, where our national debt has quadrupled. It was 1.5 trillion. It's nearly 6 trillion now, and we've got nothing to show for it. Means at some point we are going to have to take some really difficult decisions. What is important as we table and we discuss the budget that is tabled by the finance minister, when he does, is that A, we are honest that tough decisions are going to be made. Secondly, we continue to fund the key line items, education, health, social grants, and so on. And thirdly, that we are able to invest in the economy so that we can grow jobs. But it is not possible to continue to believe that it is possible to have a perfect scenario. We are going to have to take some tough decisions about what our priorities are.
Mr. Zibi, if you are not a financial journalist or an MP or an economist or an analyst, it's very difficult to understand exactly sometimes the words and the percentages that get thrown around here. You did say we need to be honest with South Africans. Can you tell my mother, your mother, your neighbor, what today means for them? Was today a good move for them? Should they be concerned?
I think the decision should have been taken a lot sooner and Parliament notified sooner if Cabinet and the parties in the government of national unity could not agree on the content of the budget. I think what is important to explain to viewers at home is the following. The process of developing a budget starts immediately after the budget has been finalized the previous year. So ministers have been in discussion, directors generals and so on have been in discussions about allocations of the budget. The key problem we have right now is that the economy is not growing, we are not growing employment, and the expected revenue from taxes is insufficient. We can either borrow more or increase personal income tax or tax on companies. Those are the choices that we have. We have to exercise one of them. It is not possible to not borrow as we have been doing, not increase personal income taxes and also not increase company taxes and still fund the things that we said we are going to do. So the decision, if we were to distill the essence of it, is who do we choose to hurt in this equation? And that's what I can tell listeners at home. Leadership comes with tough decisions. I think if it's possible to do this without hurting the poorest of the poor and having measures that are going to cushion the blow, then we must go ahead with the budget. And I think there is a way in which that can be done.
Mr. Zibi, thank you so much for your time. For more reaction and analysis, I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Bulelani Philip. Bulelani?
Thank you so much, Abra. I'm going to jump straight into it. Thank you so much, Musi Maimane, leader of BOSA, for your patience. Firstly, the postponement as BOSA, what's your take on that?
First of all, it's the most unprecedented thing that we have ever seen in democratic South Africa. But let's understand where it comes from. It comes from two things. The first is the president announced the State of the Nation that he'd be tabling a plan. That plan should have been costed, worked through. The GNU was not established last week, it was not established yesterday. It's at 6 months to plan for this moment. And that, even at this crucial juncture, it could not agree, tells me that we need to not solve for politics, but solve for the people. The second issue is that we all know what is contentious here. What is contentious is the fact that there's a 2% VAT hike. That is the central reason why we are postponing this budget. And it is clear that we are running a state that is running out of money. And therefore, what I would want to urge is why we called for an urgency of the date. We need to give the time to be able to say, what is the medium-term plan, so that we all have it, and then after that, fund for it. Because what you cannot do is keeping the politicians ahead of the people. And I think today is a salient lesson in how we need to focus. This parliament is governed by law. It is not governed by politics. That's why the Money Bills Act is specific as to when the budget must be tabled, what happens once the budget is tabled, and now we need to make sure that all committees figure out how we work the process going forward so that we are compliant with the law and we can ensure that once the appropriations are done, that South Africans can have their objectives met.
All right, thank you so much, Musi Maimane, BOSA lead. I'm going to bring in the leader of the FF Plus, Dr. Peter Groenewald. The GNU, you're not finding each other on the budget. What were some of the contentions within the GNU?
Well, firstly, I want to start by saying last year the voters of South Africa said we want change. It resulted in a government of national unity. They said that it cannot be business as usual. Now today is proof that it is not just business as usual. In fact, this action today should create confidence with investors and business people, realizing it is not business as usual. Of course, the most contentious matter was mentioned by the Speaker, the 2% increase in VAT. There are different views on that. And the fact that we could not find each other and rather postpone the budget. And we must remember, by law, it only determines that the budget must be approved, but not later than June.
But in terms of decision making, should we expect this to be an occurrence that is going to happen often, that decisions are delayed?
We're a government of national unity which is new. We've learned from this process that we have to look at the process again, so that in time that we have consensus when we present the budget. So we're learning from that. I can say that it is true that I only heard this morning when there was a meeting between the President and the leaders of the political parties who form part of the GNU, that there's going to be a 2% increase in VAT. So that was not correct.
So you were not consulted?
No, not on the 2%. We were consulted on the budget. You must remember, you must understand the budget process. There were previous presentations from the Minister of Finance on the budget, but that was on the division of the budget in terms of certain departments and what amounts they get. So that process was still followed. It was only this matter that's actually the contentious issue. And therefore, it is further proof that such an incident or such decision or such proposal in itself could say, let's stop this process.
But would you support this 2% VAT increase proposal?
No, I'm on record. I say that there are other...
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kumbuzon Chabeni, the Minister in the Presidency and Spokesperson of Cabinet. We have convened this media briefing because as Cabinet we have not finalized the budget, and therefore we could not proceed to the House for the Minister of Finance to table the budget. We had a slight delay because the elevators were not working for the minister to come down. So that's why the reason for the slight delay. And I'll then hand over to the Minister of Finance, Minister Enoch Godongwana Madiba, to read out the statement, and then we'll take the questions.
Okay, I'm not used to reading statements this time, so that I should not go out of the text. I'm going to read the statement. The annual budget is tabled by the Minister of Finance, but it requires the deliberations of the Cabinet before it is tabled in the National Assembly. Cabinet considered that although the tabling of the 2025 budget was scheduled for release at 2 p.m. on the 19th of February, a postponement is needed to allow for further deliberations to take place on the budget. Cabinet is united in the view that the budget must strike a balance between the interests of the public, economic growth, and fiscal sustainability. Furthermore, budget is produced and presented before the National Assembly according to rules outlined in the Public Finance Management Act. Section 27 of the Public Finance Management Act requires that the annual budget be tabled prior to the start of the financial year or, in exceptional circumstances, on a date as soon as possible after the start of the financial year, as the Minister of Finance may determine. Therefore, further discussion in Cabinet will take place in preparation for a new or amended budget to be tabled on the 12th of March 2025. That's your next date for the new budget.
Thank you, Minister. I'll now take the questions from the floor. I'm going to see the number of hands, and then we'll determine whether we're doing 1 or 2 rounds. And then in terms of procedure, you'll have to indicate your name, the media house where you come from, and then you filled your question. Let me start here, and then go. The 2 hands up there. Yeah, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've got 6 hands. Okay. Start, ma'am.
Good afternoon. My name is Tepi Lefele with Bloomberg News. Minister, at what point did it become apparent during your consultations that there was not consensus on this budget? And if there is not consensus again by the 12th of March, what then becomes the next steps? Thank you.
Next hand. Mike.
Edward West, Business Report. I just wanted to know, is it normal to hold a cabinet meeting just before the budget every year, or could it have been held a bit earlier?
The next hand.
Lisa Moody from Daily Maverick. Sorry, Minister, can you confirm whether the 2% that hike was the only point of contention, or were there other points as well?
Yes, sir.
SABC News. So, what kind of impact will this have in terms of how you engage with the international investors and bond holders? And obviously, it's something that we were anticipating that would happen to.
There's a lady there.
SABC. Minister, earlier on when you were here, you indicated that there's no consensus from the cabinet. It has not been approved by the cabinet. Why did you have to take such a risk?
Can one man look okay?
No. Let me protect you and you ask the question. The minister is going to only deal with the responses after you ask.
Why, Minister, did you have to take such a risk considering the expenses involved in this process? Is that not a fruitless expenditure considering the limited resources that Treasury has.
Ma'am, before you go, what risk in relation to what?
In relation to the postponement of the budget. The risk of not, when he was here earlier on, he said the budget has not been approved by cabinet. So I'm asking, why did he have to take such a risk of coming and presenting a budget that has not been approved by cabinet, as per his words? He said, in the past, it used to be approved before he presents. Thanks.
Thanks.
No, you didn't have your hand up. I didn't see your hand.
From ENCA. The DA has already released a statement suggesting that it couldn't agree with the ANC when it comes to the 2% VAT increase. Did the DA force your hand to postpone the budget, Minister? And that's the case. Is then the GNU safe? Is the country safe in the hands of the GNU?
The minister will respond, and then I'll clarify the ones that he doesn't respond to.
The DA one. At what point? Difficult question, because you never anticipate this stuff. It relates to the second question. For instance, somebody, is it normal? The answer is yes, because some of the information is market sensitive. Because of that nature, we normally give an indication. For instance, 2 weeks ago, we went to Cabinet and gave an indication. Precisely because of the market sensitivity of some of the issues, we didn't put some of these issues on the table. And then we normally put it early in the morning. The unfortunate thing today, that's why we didn't start early, is because the president was not around, so we started late. So it's normal to do that. Was the 2% the normal contention?
The only.
Huh?
Was the 2% the only contention?
Yeah, contentious issue. You can't have the 2% alone without talking about what's going to replace it, and that does not become contentious. What I'm trying to say, what we are grappling with, is not necessarily the 2% per se. What we are grappling with, given the challenges and priorities that we are facing, how do we fund them? Really, that's the debate. Do we borrow more? What are the implications of that? Do we continue cutting expenditure? What are the implications of that? Do we raise tax? What are the implications of that? There's general agreement that in the current environment, we need to find a way of funding our priorities. The debate is what is the best way of doing it? And give the bonds to Duncan and give the minister the remaining one. Bond.
Thanks, Minister.
We don't talk to board holders, you guys talk to them.
Yes. Thank you, Minister. So typically what would have happened today, what typically would have happened is that we would have had a global investor call after the budget with our domestic and foreign investors. And then there would have been some engagement over the next few days, mainly with the domestic investors, followed by a foreign roadshow. Of course, if the budget has been postponed to the 12th of March, all of those engagements will now shift until after and on the 12th of March, as per our normal practice. We will, of course, consider releasing a statement more broadly after this, but some of the key areas of communication that would have already gone out to some of our bondholders around, for example, what would happen to auction levels, that communication has already gone out, and that communication is important to go out. So there are some areas of communication that have already happened, and it's important that that goes out. In terms of the broader fiscal framework, there will have to be a re-engagement on the 12th of March when the new fiscal framework is tabled.
On the question of the DA having released a statement claiming that they forced the ANC hand, I think all of you followed Minister Mackenzie when he was replying in Parliament. And in his reply, I think he succinctly clarified it was neither a DA issue, an ANC issue, a PA issue, or a DA versus ANC, or a PA versus ANC, or IFP versus ANC. It was a cabinet decision. And let me clarify, in cabinet we have a sitting order. So the older ministers sit first. So it means when you are raising hands, it will be the ANC ministers who will raise their hands and speak first. And the focus of the discussion is not about party politics. It's about what is the balance that we need to achieve between managing our fiscal framework, managing our ability to protect the interest of South Africans in general and the poor at outmost. How do we deal with the inequality that confronts all of us? So it's never a DA ANC issue. It's a collective cabinet decision. And the minister, you raised the question of why did the minister take a risk? And he has explained, he didn't take a risk. Ordinarily we do it that way, to manage the market sensitivity. So it's not something new. Before he goes to the MTDPS, he's going to come on that morning and give us the issues. But there are continuous consultations that happen. But bottom line, at the end of the day, Treasury must balance the books, must make sure there's money that's available, and in balancing the books, they'll then have to say, in terms of what Cabinet has proposed in the previous engagement, what does the reality say? And then the minister has covered what the issues to say. How do you then plug the gap that we have in the fiscals? Do we borrow more? Do we do, what are the other things that we do? So there are two more hands that I've seen, which will be my last round. Can I have all hands up? I'm going to start with you. And then you follow. Yeah, there's no follow-ups. Can I have the hands that are up? Let's have the hands up, don't threaten to raise the hand. Raise the hand, please. You're starting, she follows, you follow, and then there's the lady right at the back, you are number 4, and the lady at the front, number 5, number 6. Ma'am with the camera, please sit down so that I can see everybody. Number 7, number 8, and number 9. That's the last round. Minister. Hello?
Please note we also have Pretoria.
How many people in Pretoria?
Three people in Pretoria.
So let's do this. We've got 7 hands here. You are going to guide me on the 3 in Pretoria. So we'll take the first 5 here, respond to them, and then the last 3, is it 2 here, and then we'll go to Pretoria for the last 3, and then we'll finish. So it's 3 rounds of questions. Thank you.
Hi, Minister. Mamalo Ndenza here from PWN. Just quickly follow up on your earlier comments at the press conference this morning about having further discussions with the DA, with the Deputy Minister Sullivan, on any issues that may arise from the budget. When do you expect those discussions to begin? Because I imagine with this postponement, it just made matters a bit more urgent. And is it perhaps not a good idea maybe for a more comprehensive agreement between parties on things like the budget, as opposed to a clearinghouse mechanism in the GNU? Is it not maybe time for a coalition or some sort of agreement on how to deal with this matter? Because this is just the first budget speech of the GNU. Thank you.
I'll answer that question for you.
Good afternoon, Minister. It's Lily from Mbele. So you say that it is not necessarily a VAT issue, but rather a funding mechanism of how to fund. Is there any other issue except how to fund that there is no consensus on? And then, DG, if you could please, can you please just take us through the process, because we've never gone through this in the country. So just the process of when you start talking about the budget with the departments, with everyone, how exactly does it unfold? Because I'd like to believe that most of the information would be information that members would have been aware of, or at least departments, as it were. And how do we, going forward, handle the information in the review documents that we've been dealing with in money? Because I think also, I would like to just say that we do think as the media that it is in the interest of the public to allow us to elaborate as much as we can, to also avoid speculation on some of the issues, because we have been handling these documents since early this morning.
The hand here.
Minister Secretary of Business Day. Forgive me if I'm asking something that has already been asked, but following up on the last question, can I ask you specifically, was there consensus on the large quantity of spending increase that you penciled into the budget over the medium term? Was there any dispute over that or over any of the details? And just secondly, our procedural question, what do we do now with these documents? I mean, I'm assuming that since a large number of economists and a large number of journalists have read every word, the only thing you can really do is just publish them as a draft to avoid inside information or inside trading. But maybe are we free to go ahead and write about them as a draft, to be amended on the 12th month? If you can just guide us on what to do now, unless you plan to keep us.
Bring them back.
And number 4.
Came from SABC Africa. Minister, seeing that there was no consensus or agreement in your multi-party coalition government with to the numbers that you were supposed to present today, I have to ask, to what extent was this genuinely a GNU coalition budget, and what's your solution then to get your house in order?
Number 5.
Koman Gumbi from Reuters. Ministers, coalition governments generally disagree on most things except the budget. What went wrong this time? And to follow on from my colleagues, at what point in the process did you realize that things were working?
Thank you. We'll take the last 3 hands, the last 2 hands, the last 3 hands with the ones in Pretoria, so that we can then answer. Then it becomes round of 5 questions each. It works nicely. I'm going to answer the first one and the last question. Again, you are making an assumption that the differences were from one party or the other. That is completely wrong. The differences were across parties, including ministers who you would call ANC ministers, but we are all ministers of cabinet. So it's not a one-party issue. And there is no need for the minister to engage with the serpent outside of what the department does. Part of why we requested a delay as cabinet is that we want to meet as cabinet and have a substantive discussion on the budget. So remove the notion, party politics, people who claim certain things. If we want to be naughty like other people are, we can mention names of say who differed, who supported, who differed, and you'll be shocked. So let's not go there. It's the cabinet ministers who did not approve the budget as it was being tabled and said they needed more time to engage with the issues of how do we, what the minister normally called the trade-offs. And we said because the time, and the minister has explained, the cabinet, special cabinet only started later. But the time to go to Parliament was then approaching. We then requested the Deputy President as the leader of government business to then request the Speaker to request Parliament to give us the time to agree on the budget. And it means that between now and the 12th, we are going to go back as cabinet and have an engagement on cabinet. In actual fact, yourselves as the media, when we have mahutas and sometimes photo sessions, you come in and see how we sit in cabinet. You see who the people who sit closest to the chairing, what you call the presidium. So let's not go there to say, is this party vis-a-vis this party? It's not. We are all ministers of the government. We share a common concern about the impact of the budget in terms of achieving our priorities, protecting the poor. And the Treasury has the responsibility to fund the priorities. And they find mechanism, and they say, Minister was very clear, and he has been clear 2 weeks ago, he has been clear all the time the consultations have come through, to say you need to make the choices. It's a give and take. You can't have your cake and then eat it. You want to have it, you stop eating it. But if you eat it, you won't have it. So those are the choices that Cabinet, given the reality of what happened, because Treasury has the responsibility to fund the budget, Cabinet will then have to go back and say, we didn't want to make this choice. But now we think that choice that was put on the table, or this other one that's also in the table, is too difficult for us to comprehend given the situation in our country, and therefore we are willing to make this choice. That's the balancing act that we all need to do as Cabinet. And that is a decision of Cabinet. And Digi, maybe you must explain the process they want, or you to explain in terms of how you get to compile the budget documents.
Starting from Joe.
Yeah. Thank you, Minister. So I'll try not to repeat every single step, but just give a broad overview. The process starts in the first few months of the new fiscal year, when we release the medium-term expenditure framework guidelines. Those guidelines go out to all departments, and based on those guidelines, departments then make submissions to the National Treasury, which gets processed through a technical process, which was previously called the MTEC, the Medium-Term Expenditure Committee. It's now called the Technical Committee on the Budget. And that process runs over the course of a few months. It then culminates in presentations to various fora where the ministers and other colleagues are involved, the Budget Council, the Budget Forum, eventually the Ministers' Committee on the Budget, and then it goes to Cabinet. And then at that stage, it then finds expression in the medium-term budget policy statement. The medium-term budget policy statement sets out, in effect, the budget priorities and the budget for the next 3 years. The budget then, which follows in February, then articulates the specific changes for that upcoming year as well as the medium term. The difference between the MTBPS and the budget is that the budget is the time where we pronounce on tax changes. So to the extent that there are tax changes and to the extent that there are additional revenue that finds expression in the fiscal framework, that additional revenue then allows often for expenditure changes. And those final set of revenue, expenditure and debt recommendations then form the basis of the budget that is tabled in February. And I think the Minister Ntshavheni covered the other issues around the process then that happens in the lead up to Cabinet. There was one other question, Minister, on the documents as well. Look, I mean, we are in uncharted territory, as you can imagine. We were talking to the governor earlier, and he said, well, in fact, the embargo has not been lifted because the embargo only gets lifted once the minister starts speaking. But of course, we cannot pretend that none of the journalists and economists who are in the lockup have not fully internalized the documents. And so I think one of the things that we will have to reflect on is actually what all of that means. And we will have to do that, I would imagine, fairly quickly.
But for now, the documents come back.
Can I take the last one? How to fund? No, there's one thing that's how to fund. Was the only difference. Say was the difference only how to fund. Let me put it this way. If you ask me as a Minister of Finance, I like the exercise. All right? What it does, it forces some of the things we have not been doing to discuss what Minister Ntshavheni has been calling for, trade-offs. In that sense, Cabinet itself is becoming engaging in the discussion of the trade-offs. It's not making a technical issues for Dr. Peters And then when the budget is being implemented, somebody says, no, it's Treasury who cut my budget. All right? It's not, whereas a budget is a statement of cabinet. And so what is happening, in my view, is when cabinet become involved in the detailed discussions is useful for us in that sense. I don't think when you say Kopano, is only, they fight over everything. Coalition governments, including the allocation of resources and priorities. Where it becomes easy is a country like Germany, where your scope is limited because you've got legalized fiscal rules. In that sense, the scope for battles over budget is limited. What is this thing? Oh, there was that lady who says, is it genuine?
Just was there consensus on this debate?
No, this. Okay. Well, have we had some questions there?
I know. So there are three more hands here, and then we'll take the 3 hands in Pretoria, and then we'll go to the online questions.
Kara? This is Kara.
Thanks, Minister. It's Carol Clinton. Minister, did I hear you correctly when you said that because of the market sensitivity, you did not table all the changes that were in the budget at the initial meeting? I guess that was the meeting on the 5th of February when the budget was discussed. Are you saying that the tax proposals, the proposals on tax specifically, were not raised at that meeting and that they were then revealed later? And if you could just clarify that. Then secondly, are you prepared to have a wholesale review of spending, a comprehensive spending review and a zero-based budget which examines the wasteful spending on all sorts of things in government that continues to be refunded every single year? Thanks.
Good afternoon, Minister. It's Dogozo Kumalo from Newsroom Africa. We spent some time with the various unions in civil society who handed over the memorandum to the National Treasury this afternoon. They were alluding to wanting to take to nationwide strike on the 6th of October, and then saying they should move that closer due to that 2% VAT increase. Now that the budget has been moved to the 12th of March, is there any time to be able to engage with unions and civil society who said they've tabled various suggestions that National Treasury should consider for the budget? Thank you.
Hi, Minister. It's Fifi from SABC Africa. So coming into the budget, there was a media story just reporting the SARS Commissioner, sir, saying that he was also opposed to tax increases and saying that perhaps a better way to fill the gap, as it were, was to capacitate SARS a little bit more. The number that was being reported was around 800 million rand or so in taxes there that have not been collected, that the Commissioner said could be collected if they had the capacity. Can I just ask if perhaps this was discussed at all and whether this will be considered? And also, so this time, I think next week, we are all going to be meeting again. It's one of the major launches for the G20 meetings, and we've also got businesses from some of the largest economies in the world that are going to be here. I'm not too sure if we should be feeling a little bit embarrassed potentially about this budget deadlock, but nonetheless, how do you think this deadlock on the budget right now so could influence some of the conversations you may have with your global counterparts next week? Thanks.
Okay. Let's go to Pretoria for the 3 heads.
Afternoon, Minister. My name is Tanvi. I just a couple of questions for me. I don't know if you touched on
Can you come closer to the mic?
Hi, Tanvi. Can you please speak louder? Can bring the mic closer to you?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, but But you'll have to be slow.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead.
All right, just can the Minister expand on which market-sensitive issues were inserted into the budget review today? We understand that it was the VAT increase and perhaps also negotiations on the public wage bill. And then when do consultations begin in terms of tweaking the budget, the entire budget today or next week? When do they begin? And then what happens should an agreement not be reached by April the 1st or March 12th, which is the proposed new date of the budget? Is there a deadlock mechanism in place? Thanks.
The second one?
Good afternoon, Minister. Helmer Price from Business Report. At a previous media briefing, I asked you, why don't we go back to the third Wednesday of March? And at the time, you said that would create a problem for the provinces. Now we've got the second Wednesday in March. Can we make that permanent? Because on the first Tuesday of March, that is when GDP data is released. And related to that, can we have Stats SA use their normal procedure of saying that GDP growth, non-farm and including others? Because in the third quarter, the year-on-year change for total GDP was only 0.3%, but if you exclude agriculture, it was 1.1%, and that's a perceptual change. Thank you.
That's it for Pretoria, Minister. The third one was covered. Thanks.
Thank you. Minister, over to you.
Yeah, I think I'll give DG the last question there. I don't know this thing about third quarters, third Wednesdays, and so on. Carol, the comprehensive review is going to take place, but that comprehensive review is not going to take place between now and the 12th of March. So if one has got an expectation that we'll have a comprehensive review between now and the 12th of March and hope to get money, it won't take place. I'm quite keen to know, people tell me about zero-based budgeting. I want to know a country which does it, so that I should go and learn experiences. I've seen it in textbooks, but I've not seen any country that does it. It would be an interesting experience to do it. I don't know whether DG knows any country that does zero-based budgeting. I know people talk about it. No doubt about it. This notion that you are going to engage the whole of society when you craft a budget doesn't work. There's this lady who says, are we going to consult everybody? It doesn't mean we don't listen to anybody proposal that are submitted, but it doesn't mean we're going to organize the rallies across the country for civil society and everybody. We listen to those proposals that have been said. People march to my office. I'm used to it. Even every budget, this is my fourth one. I don't remember a single one when Vavi was not outside. So I'm used to it. This thing, Commissioner, I ask you people to go and ask him. Right? Go and ask him. Because when I saw this thing in the business day, I called him. And Commissioner said, no, I said it some 3 weeks ago, but not in the same context. I'm putting context in an Alan Gray meeting. 3 weeks ago, in an Alan Gray meeting, it's been reproduced in the business day incorrectly, according to him. That's what the Commissioner said. What I do know, there are different roles between the two of us. His role is tax administration. My role is tax policy. And it's quite important both of us will keep to those 2 lanes in doing that. I don't think this thing is likely to do anything on G20. These people that are going to be here, they've got their own problems. One of my colleagues told me he's going to land here on the 23rd, and his country will be voting, probably his party is going to lose while he's here. If you say there's no Minister of Finance who doesn't have a problem on earth, mistaken. My colleague, Christina from Canada, has just thrown the towel and resigned from Canada. So I remember I was sitting with Kwasi from UK when we lasted 38 days. He was fired when I was sitting with him in Washington. So Minister of Finance is not a thankful job. So those people who are coming there, they've got, I can tell you, if you were to ask them, they'll tell you there are problems. The only one who's not going to have a problem who's coming next week, because she's also the president at the moment. She's Minister of Finance and President, is Switzerland. We don't have called something deadlock breaking. We don't negotiate the budget. People are going to say whatever they say. And whatever they say, we'll listen. I'm going to say whatever they say. In the finances, there's a president in this country. We must make those policy choices. We can't have deadlock breaking machine. The president must make a choice, a decision once we're making all of this noise and say what is best for the country. We don't have that. TG, you're going to talk what is market sensitive and your third week, why not? I agree with that gentleman. It gives me more time. Then not coming from holiday, I'm stuck in debating a budget.
Yeah, fortunately, you don't have to make that decision today, Minister.
Yeah, I know.
Look, just to respond to some of those questions, there are various legislative provisions that govern aspects of the process, which are important both for Almo's question and for one of the questions that was asked earlier. For example, provinces must table their annual budgets within 2 weeks of the national budget being tabled. That's in the PFMA, and that also influences the timing of the national budget. Section 27. Section 29 talks about what happens by the end of the financial year, by the end of the 31st of March, if there is no budget. And in that case, there's a process by which departments can spend up to a certain limit, 45% in the first 4 months of the previous year's appropriation, and then other provisions kick in thereafter. Of course, as the ministers indicated, we are not planning for that. We are planning for a budget that is going to be tabled on the 12th of March, that follows the processes. So first there will be a technical process which the team will go back to and do, and then there will be the followed by the cabinet process, and then tabled in Parliament on the 12th of March. Yeah, and I think you covered the issue, Minister, on the other market-sensitive issues. And that's it.
Then the online questions. Is it Nandipa who's reading them out?
Why don't we have it on the 7th of March?
And the media members, media houses that are represented this afternoon. Minister, we've got 3 questions here. The first question was asked by Sophie Gwena from SABC. She asked, was the option of rolling back 1% corporate tax that was introduced in 2021 was considered? Second question from Gosina to Power FM. The RAND has reacted negatively on the markets regarding the postponement. Is Treasury worried that this may send a negative message to the G20 bloc, or will it end justify the means? And the last question is from Quinini from Sunday World. She asked, the Freedom Front Plus says they were only informed about the 2% increase this this morning. Why would you only reveal such information to GNU partners for the last minute? Thank you.
Thank you, Nandipam. Over to you, Minister Ndiji.
DG is going to answer this. What do they talk about? The rand and everything. Rolling back the company tax, I think everybody thinks that the only people who, once you have got a crisis, must take companies. Two things. What it does, mistake it suggests that companies are not, a couple of points, companies are not going to respond to that. I can tell you now, I was talking to somebody who's investing in the UK, he's moving a company headquarters from UK because of the new taxes to Zurich. Now, I'm just giving you that it doesn't mean they're not going to react. Secondly, when you tax companies, you're taxing profitability. Why are we not getting money now? Let me just give you an indication. In 2023, we were thinking that we are rolling out of the commodity prices. All of a sudden, boom! By July, we recorded a 32 billion rand revenue loss from the mining industry. Now, irrespective of whether you tax them, if there's no profitability, there's no profitability in the industry. Even the commissioners, I know people we're talking about the commissioner here, will tell you the problem, we're not getting money from industry on the existing tax, let alone a new tax, because companies are not making profits. So that's one set of issues. If you compare, which we do, our level of taxation of company tax compared to our peers, we're far above the OECD average. I don't think whether that slide we have in the budget review. We're far above OECD average. What does that mean? What that means, we're uncompetitive as an investment destination in an environment when we have high unemployment. So it's quite easy to make these things. 2 weeks ago, we went to Cabinet. Among other things, proposals, was this tax proposal, we didn't say, we did indicate, point a direction towards a specific tax. Everybody was in that meeting. That's why one of them leaked it to the Sunday Times. Right? The one of them leaked it to the Sunday Times, a cabinet minister, leaked it to the Sunday Times. He was not sure about the percent. That's why he used 1%. He knew that that's the direction we're taking. For somebody saying they were not aware, it's disingenuous. It's disingenuous because that's where the leaks about the VAT came from. Because I tabled it in Cabinet. What was interesting is that some of the people who leaked were Cabinet colleagues. One of them who was leaking to the Cabinet, to the journalists, even went to an extent of telling the journalists what kind of questions that were asked me in Cabinet. So they come here and tell you in the media and say, no, the first time they hear about this. No, we presented in Cabinet, but we also said this is the direction we're likely to take. And everybody was jittery, and we didn't put the amount then because we thought it's too far. You can imagine if we did then 2 weeks ago, where would we be in terms of leaking? So the Freedom Fund Plus is not telling the truth. Not telling the truth. It's like the ones that are saying, like the DA, they like, and those ones have got an identity crisis. They always want to be given attention and so on. Even things they did not do, they claim is theirs. So that's the stuff I know. DG, you can answer about bonds and markets.
Thank you, Minister. Very briefly because I think the question was, are we concerned about the RAND movements in particular in relation to the G20? And the answer is no. What we are concerned about are sustained weaknesses in the currency because of what that means for the economic indicators that are important to us from a fiscal framework perspective. So, for example, a sustained weakness in the currency means that our dollar-denominated debt becomes more expensive, and that shows up in our gross borrowing requirement. A sustained depreciation in the currency means that inflation is likely to be higher because of imported inflation, and that has a implication for the parts of our budget that are indexed to inflation. So we, of course, will be watching the implications of today's postponement on both the currency and the bond markets. And to the extent that there are changes that we need to factor in for the next budget that we are going to table to Cabinet, we will do that. And whatever budget is tabled will then take account of whatever the latest forecasts are, both on the currency but also on the bond markets. As I said this morning, the Rand, as of last week, on a 12-month basis, was the best performing EM currency relative to the dollar, and we'll have to see over the next few weeks how that changes, if at all, and what that means for the budget we'll table on the 12th. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, DG. Thank you, members of the media. This media briefing